What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fight Night show here on Saturday. It's October 7th. We're talking UFC on a very, very fun sports weekend. We've got UFC, of course, college football, 4 days of playoff baseball, and NFL tomorrow. So busy morning over here, but excited to talk this 11-fight card with the usual crew. We'll bring in Mad Lab first. How you doing? I know you were looking forward to that week off after, 17 straight UFC cards, something like that. But back in the saddle today, and I heard you were itching to get a little action down on these fights.
Yeah, man, it's weird. It was like a long week, but it was a short week all at the same time. Long week because I had to still do other work, but it was a short week because it was like you get a little taste of time off, and then you're right back into it. So I'm psyched though. Yeah, I went a little nuts. I got a little fucking gambling fever. And at the end of this week, I saw the bet pack. I was like, it's really not my character, but I just kept them in there, fired away, and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't go many days without gambling on something, but yesterday was one of them. There was very little sports action in the streets. JSU, maybe you got in on the college football. It was more of an NFL research day for me. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
Yeah, I did. I did have to get a little something down on some college football last night because I can't help myself, but not a ton. I mean, it's, one of those things where you go without, like MMA, you know what I mean? I look forward to it on Saturdays. It's like the thing I look forward to the most. Honestly, on the weekend, I look forward to it maybe even more than NFL Sunday. Like, to be honest with you, I love the fights. It's become one of my favorite things to do on Saturdays is just, watch the fights and gamble on them. And, I enjoy it. It's awesome. It's great watching high level MMA, and I'm glad we're back at it with a solid 2 fight night card. I think we got.
Yeah, for the most part, fairly closely lined fights. I think the biggest favorite is sitting below -400. So should make for a fun, exciting card and not a bad way to return. Drew, let's go over to you. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
Yeah, doing good. I actually ventured into the horse racing Discord with Wiley yesterday afternoon. I couldn't help myself. He tagged everybody. He's got winners, so figured I might as well go in there and quickly lit a little bit of money on fire. But it was fun watching some of those races live. There's actually some pretty good apps out there for horse racing, which I've never really gotten into. So yeah, plenty of stuff to choose from yesterday, even though there weren't the big sports. So yeah, this will be a fun card. Obviously, the playoff baseball is fun. I was talking to Rubio about like the showdown stuff we'll get into. There's definitely a huge edge. So definitely stay tuned if you're not a member of RPS, because that's a huge edge.
Absolutely. We got a lot of sports to watch today, so let's get right to the fights. First fight on the card, we do go to the women's division. Pretty closely lined fight here. It is Montana De La Rosa sitting around -150 over JJ Aldrich. We'll start with you as always, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two ladies?
Yeah, when I first saw it on paper, I was like, this is tough. This is one of those fights that like JJ Aldrich will figure out a way to squeak out, But I've always been high on Montana De La Rosa. She hasn't really lived up to her potential. She lives with, she's obviously married to Mark De La Rosa, black belt jiu-jitsu. They're a jiu-jitsu family. I'm not a big advocate of jiu-jitsu anymore in MMA. I think like the secret's out, on it, but she's bigger. She's got better wrestling. She had a full camp. JJ Aldrich doesn't have a full camp. She's coming in on short notice here. She can kind of go in there and be the bully in this fight. So I know a lot of people are probably going to hone in on JJ Aldrich because she's the more consistent fighter, which she 1,000% is. But I'm going to be targeting Montana. I think Montana's a good price here. I think she could be the bully in there. I think if JJ Aldrich wins this fight, she's got to keep it at range. She's got to keep it at distance. And I don't think Montana De La Rosa is going to allow her to create that space. So I think from a scoring perspective in DraftKings, Aldrich doesn't have that upside to really score that well because she's more of a points fighter, where Montana can look for the transitions, can look to drag her down, can look to fight her in the clinch. So from a DK side, I 1,000% like Montana De La Rosa here.
I'm with you, Mad Lab. I think De La Rosa is the fighter with the higher upside. She is my pick to win this fight, and I don't think a terrible DraftKings play either. JSU, let's go to you.
Who the fuck is this fucking kid Alvaro Construction? Who the fuck are you, dude?
Who?
Oh, the kid in the
comments.
No. Yeah.
That via Boston Crab. What is he talking about over here?
Show your face next time instead of having a fucking A in an orange circle.
Show your face. Madlab wants to see the face. It's got me dying.
Come back a winner, Alvaro Construction. Put your face on your YouTube little profile, and then you can apparently say what you want. JSU, let's go back to the fights. De La Rosa and Aldridge.
I mean, I was going to sit right here and watch the fight happen between Madlab and the chat, so I would have been fine watching that.
His fucking tits right off his chest.
I would not doubt you'd smack his tits off his chest, Madlab. I do love also, too, no matter if Madlab's talking shit to someone, I don't know if you noticed, but whenever he gets into that mode, he always crosses his arms and leans back. Like,
no, I do that
it's like his kill mode, and he's trying to hold himself back from like going in on this fucking dude. All right, so I agree with Madlab about the DraftKings scoring perspective of this fight. Like, if you're gonna play someone, I think in DK, it's probably De La Rosa. She has the upside, I think, to score well in DraftKings. Where, like Madlab said, in an Aldridge win with a decision, I don't know if that's going to be optimal, at her price tag and everything. I just don't know. I think there's a lot of live dogs on this card too. So I'm probably going to fade Aldridge in DK, and I'll be heavier on the De La Rosa side. I think that she can get, if she can get some takedowns, some transitions, kind of like you saw in the Lipsky fight where, once she got her down, she just top pressure, elbows. She does good work once she gets on top of you. She heavy elbows and can really score well from a DraftKings perspective if that happens. So, and she's live for submissions. She's had a bunch of submission wins too. So I like her. I think she's my pick for the fight. I think she can finish JJ
what
too.
What does she buy sub?
Huh?
What does she buy sub?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look at that. I'll find it.
I got her 8-1 in round 1.
8-1
in round 1. Yeah, 12-1 in round 2. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the overall submission number is, but you could get a decent number.
I'll find it, man, because I like that bet. Honestly, I think that's the way to go. But
I think the inside the distance number is kind of misleading because, like, it is like the submission, at least like the points on the ground, can really lean into a decent score even at 8,200.
Yeah, so I got her. Let's see.
I'd say like minus. I mean, plus 450 maybe.
FanDuel doesn't even have it listed right now.
Well, apparently FanDuel dropped the ball on props this week.
Oh, really?
It's 22-1.
Wow, 22-1 by sub?
Doesn't say right.
That can't be right. If it's 22-1, I mean, just hammer that. No, it's plus 450. It's plus 450.
I actually just said that. I called that on the nose.
Yeah, plus 450 by submission. She's actually 11-1 to win by KO, TKO. And then she's plus 130 to win by decision. So clearly the books are thinking decision is the most likely outcome in this fight. Even JJ's plus 150. So that's telling you, like, if JJ wins, it's for sure by decision because her submission prop is 22-1 and so JJ's submission prop is 22-1. So Matty Ice was talking about JJ. And her KO props 14-1. So, I mean, clearly Montel De La Rosa has the upside to at least finish the fight by submission, probably. But again, ground and pound, that's how she took out Lipsky, was those heavy elbows. And I don't know if you remember, but Lipsky was bleeding. She had a bad cut, and it was just bloody everywhere. So I do think she can finish inside the distance. And I don't mind the bet either, of just taking the submission prop at plus 450. I think it's a good prop to take.
All right. Drew, what do you got for numbers between these two ladies?
Yeah, I got De La Rosa at 30% and Aldrich at 16%. So I'm right there with you guys. I think De La Rosa is definitely the play. Aldrich is somewhat of an easy fade, to be honest. And De La Rosa is kind of sneaky for like a pretty good score, to be honest. Like if she gets a submission in any round, obviously to get there, she's obviously going to be on the ground and probably have some control time as well. So some takedowns and some control time. So I think De La Rosa is actually a sneaky upside play at 8,200, not just play the money line number at 8,200. So yeah, I'm with you guys, De La Rosa. And I probably won't have any Aldrich, to be honest.
God, Robert in the chat says JSU looks like a shorter Nate Maness. I mean, All right. I mean, shorter. He's 5'10", so maybe that puts me at like 5'7", 5'8". I take an extra couple inches on my height, DC. I take a few extra inches.
Wait. He said you're a shorter name and S. You don't just get to add 2 inches to your height.
Well, I just added it because I didn't want to be like.
Yeah,
I'm
you know what that
not
also means?
5'10".
That also means you're like deathly ill thin, dude.
Deathly ill. That's true. Actually, I'm not actually that thin.
He looks like fucking
size.
Tom Hanks in Philadelphia, dude.
Yeah, I might be thick. I might be thicker than Nate Maness, honestly. So, I might outdo him in the weight room. But
all right, we'll get to the next fight. It's essentially a coin flip between Ori Keeling and Johnny Munoz. Yeah, we'll just go right back to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two?
Look, people are going to take this the wrong way. You got to wait for who I'm picking to win, but they always take what I say the wrong way, and they think I'm going the other side. I don't like this guy, Joe Pyfer. There's something about him that rubs me the wrong way. I don't like the whole fucking thing like The Rock, the $7 story, and I came from fucking poverty, and I don't want to hear that. Like, I hate when people use that. Like, nobody else is coming from poverty. Nobody else had hard times. Like, 90% of athletes come from hard times, bad areas, fucked up families, so this guy always using that crutch that like I came from nothing. It doesn't make you a better fighter. Like guys, let's stop with that. Like, it doesn't make you a better fighter because you came from a rough area, or you came up with hard times, or you were sleeping in your wrestling coach's house. Like, I hate that whole scenario. I think he's being a little overblown. I think the Contender Series has the ability to blow your balloon a little bit higher.
Which fight are you talking about?
He's talking about the Pfeiffer fight.
Isn't that what we're on?
No.
What are we on?
I was gonna let him go, DC. I
was waiting for him to bring it back to this fight somehow, but I'm like, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Hold on a second. Why didn't you fucking stop me, dude?
Well, you kind of said like, hey, well, take me a minute, I'll tell you the winner of the fight. So maybe there's a roundabout way we were.
Yeah, I thought he was somehow gonna bring this whole story back to Munez versus.
What are you talking about?
The Johnny Munoz
Eric
fight.
Wing.
Oh, you know why? I got my list at the top. All right, Johnny Munoz and Ori Keeling. Yeah. All right, so it's striker versus grappler. I mean, guys, it's really what you like. What do you think is going to win? You think Munoz's chin is going to get caught before he gets a takedown, or you think Munoz is going to be able to ground this fight? Because whoever gets what they want is going to hold serve. If Munoz takes this fight down, more than likely he's going to be able to hold him down. More than likely he's going to be able to have his way with him. Ori Keeling's the bigger guy. He might be able to get up 1 or 2 times, but if he starts finding a path into his hips, he's taking him down, and he's going to hold him there. The other switch side is if he can't take him down, he's going to get chewed up on the feet because Ori Keeling is the bigger guy, and he's the obviously the longer fighter. So it's what do you like? What do you have more faith in? If you have more faith in the grappling, you're definitely going Munoz. If you have more faith in the striking, you're going for Ori Keeling. The quicker finish on a DK perspective is always the striker. He's always got the chance to clip you quick and knock you out. If you're looking for the accumulation of points that can lead up to a possible submission, you like Munoz. So I like both sides of this fight, to be honest with you. I'm going to have both sides. I don't see this fight going to the cards. I think if it goes to the cards, it's probably on the Munoz side. If it's inside the distance, there's a higher percentage that Ori Keeling finished the fight. But I like both sides of this fight. I think the value, though, is on Munoz and DK.
Yeah, I think a close fight here. Obviously, a little bit of contrast of styles. JSU, break this one down for us.
We changed his photo, Mad Lab. He changed his photo, but that's not him. So I'll throw it out there. So
who? This fucking you're like a little bro. You know what? Alvaro Construction. I'm gonna look you up right now. You better hope that's not the real name of your fucking construction company. I'll tell you that right now.
Mad Lab showing up on site. You better watch out.
I got to give Alvaro a little bit of credit for changing his avatar to Tommy G. I'll give him a little credit.
It was creative. I will give him a little credit for that. That's why I laughed and put it on the screen. But for this fight,
it probably is Tommy G.
Yeah,
no,
he's doing a bait and switch.
Yeah, he actually texted me last night at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, then he's not up right now.
So. My time, 1 o'clock in the morning, which is
his time, 4 a.m. Yeah. So I'm with Mad Lab that I think this fight for DK makes sense to, have a little bit of both sides if you're playing multiple lineups. I'm on the Ricky Lang side. I think that I hate the guys like Munoz who they'll like pull guard when things aren't going their way, when they can't get the takedown, they'll just pull guard. And then they just look honestly trapped if they can't get that sub from their back. And that was like the Santos fight where he kept doing it. And really, he only had one shot. It was the first time he pulled guard to actually submit Santos, had like 2 decent submission attempts, and then that was it. And then he just kept doing it and like held the body lock, and he ended up taking some really tough shots in ground and pound down there. So I'm going to go with the striker side if I got to pick one. And I think Lang gets it done inside the distance. Like Mad Lab said, too, I think this fight finishes. So you either think it's the finish on the feet with Ricky Lang, or you think it's a submission with Munoz. So if you're betting them, like if you like one side, I'd be actually betting the instant, whatever the prop is to finish. I think Lang to finish KO is plus 240. I think Munoz submission prop is plus 250. So I think they're like right around the same number. And I think one of those two ways is the ways it goes. I'm going to go with Ricky Lang by knockout, though.
All right. I assume this one is close in the ownership, Drew. What are the numbers and what do you got for this fight?
Yeah, Eric Lang is at 26.5 and 28% for Munoz. So just like Mad Lab said, man, this fight is literally a 50-50. It's literally a toss-up. It's just a clash of style. So it's kind of take your poison on if you think it's going to be on the ground or it's going to be standing up. So I actually have Munoz, ranked slightly higher, and it's just because of a price and with the inside the distance odds, I guess. But it's a 50-50. So I wouldn't want to be. I think it finishes, but I don't want to be like overweight too much on one guy. This is kind of like a mix and match fight, which we don't get many of, but it's literally a toss up.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I did expect a close fight, and yeah, I think it could go either way. On to the next fight. We do go back to the women's division.
This dumb fuck right here. I guarantee you Mad Lab's way more healthy than you are, Joshua. So sit the fuck down.
What's that, Joshua Frick? First of all, with a name like Frick, I'd probably change that. Fucking Joshua fucking Frick. Diabetes. I'm fucking 260 pounds. I'm probably less % body fat than you. Post your fucking picture, Alvaro Construction. Let's go. He's probably works for him. He's probably the
That's probably his real name, Mad Lab. That's probably his real name, actually.
Joshua fucking Little Prick. That's what
Mad Lab's probably the guy at school. You walk up like, dude, nice shoes. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
Mad Lab definitely takes every single comment very seriously. Yeah. And then you're like, oh,
you know why?
You, Mad Lab.
Because listen, I come from a different school. I come from, if you talk shit, like you do it to somebody. You don't sit behind a keyboard and type, and then if I see you in the street, you look like a fucking crackhead. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm still going to talk shit to you when I own you with one of these dogs.
I'm
waiting for us to be on the wrong side. I'm still going to
DC did it too, but DC's got the balls to at least do it too, like over text message.
I was going to say, I'm on the keyboard warrior side here. I'm on the opposite.
No, you're not, because you at least have the balls. Like, you actually came. I remember one time DC came. Where did DC go? DC, I think, came to Jersey or something. This is when me and DC were warring. I was like, I'll see you. No, I was going to Colorado, remember?
Yeah. Oh, man.
It would be funny if DC actually showed up to Mad Lab's house, like ready to brawl with him, like butt heads with him after all the back and forth. Like, that would be funny. Mad Lab tried to coach DC in boxing. Then DC didn't end up doing it. And then they butt heads online. Like, that would actually be the best scenario involved.
We got a few more years in us, so we'll see. We'll see where the story takes us.
Are you still training?
What's that?
Are you still training?
Not for boxing until Siege signs the goddamn papers.
I didn't even know that kid was still alive.
He's just running up like hills. DC's running. He's a runner right now.
Runner. That's true.
Why he lost like a lot of weight? He's running.
Yeah, DC's been running.
He was running.
No, not you. I thought you said Siege was running.
No. DC.
I was like, where's he running?
He's playing darts.
Yeah, darts. Oh, man. All right. Back to the latest division here. Kanaka Murata minus 340 over Vanessa Demopoulos. Back to you, Mad Lab. Murata Demopoulos, what do you see?
I don't know, bro. This is a fight that I'm not really interested in. I could see it going one or two ways. I can see Murata coming back from this layoff and just putting it on Demopoulos, just taking her down, controlling her on the ground. And then I could see her fighting a little bit tentatively, where Demopoulos maybe grabs a limb, which he's so good at. In Murata's last fight, that's how she broke her arm. You know, she got caught up in something. So, dangerous fight. Demopoulos is always there to fight. Murata's going to have to work. But it's the price to me is too high. You know what I mean? Like for her, 8,900, even though we always talk about like sitting under that 9K bracket where a lot of the casuals will just go up to the 9K and leave that like 89, 88, 87 area alone. She just doesn't do anything for me. Like she doesn't, but which probably tells me that she's going to fucking run roughshod on the board and she's going to score super high. But as of right now, from what I'm looking at, it's like not a fight I'm going to be super high on. I'm going to have a little bit of both sides. I'm going to have a little bit more of Murata. But I just feel like for her price, there's so many other guys that I feel more confident in that have the potential to score much better.
It makes sense to me. It's a fight I'm not super high on. JSU, what do you see between these two?
Yeah, I mean, so that last fight she had when she broke her arm, she like fought for almost the whole round after she broke her arm, and literally she fought one-handed, and you saw her arm just like dangling there the whole time. So definitely a tough girl. Obviously doing that, you got a real badass girl for sure. But I don't know how like good she is. Can she score really well in DraftKings? Maybe. I guess if she like took her down and laid on her for 3 rounds, I guess maybe she'd score decent, Mad Lab. But it's just like we don't really know much about her. I would want to hear Drew tell me like she's going to come in pretty low owned. Like if Drew told me that she was going to be like a low owned 9K or 8,900 fighter, maybe I'd take stabs if you're like MMEing. But in my like 1 to 3 lineups, like single entry, 3 entry max, I would probably just stay away from this fight in general because I think it does probably go to the cards. And I don't think Demopoulos is a great dog. I think there's better dogs than her. So I'd probably just lean staying away from this fight unless Drew tells me it's just not going to be owned.
Tell him, Drew. Tell him the ownership.
Yeah, it's going to be lower owned than the other fighters, but it's not enough to warrant playing Murata, I think, in this spot. It's the price is all money line, and inside the distance obviously makes a big difference. So Murata I have at 27%, and Demopoulos I have at 15%. So I actually lean a little bit of Demopoulos here at 7,300, just a sprinkle, probably around 15%. But Murata, you're right. I don't see a reason to pay up for Murata. I mean, you're basically paying up for the money line number for a win, and that's not enough, obviously, in tournaments. So, yeah, Murata would be a fade at 27%. Again, she's going to be lower owned than the 9K fighters, but it's not enough to warrant playing Murata over any of those. Plus, Demopoulos has the same nickname as Mad Lab.
Huh? Look at Corey Balmer. Look what he wrote.
It would be funny if you did just start throwing bad.
I did. I was on my phone looking to see where Alvarez Construction was. It turns out it's in California.
Probably right down the street.
Hit him with the Yelp bad review. You can't come back from that. All right, that's Murata.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to somebody's business. That's not me. I don't do that.
We're all kind of lower on this fight for DFS purposes. We go back to the men's division next. Mateus Mendonca minus 240 over the taller JSU, Nate Maness, apparently. Back to you, Mad Lab. Mendonca, what do you see?
There's two fights on his card that I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, and this is one of them. I don't know why he's cutting weight like this. Like he can barely make his own division. He's cutting weight again. You know, so I like Nate Maness as a fighter. Like I think he does have some talent. He is a tough kid. He's got some upside. He's got every part of the MMA aspect kind of covered a little bit. I'm not saying he's good at any like one particular thing, but he's a solid guy. Like he's a good fighter. Like on any regional circuit, he's going to be a top contender. You know, but to cut weight like this, like you're taking your legs out, number one, and number two is you're fighting a guy. It's the wrong guy to really cut weight against. You're fighting a guy from Shuto Box. You know how these guys are. These guys are just tough dudes. These guys are like street fighter guys with skill sets behind them. It's not the type of guy that you want to be cutting weight with and having those, ganky legs. So I don't know. Like, I'm not super high on Mendonca. I just think that the shoot box guys are tough guys that bring a certain elevation of fighting that you have to be ready for. You have to have a gas tank for. You have to have a chin for. Like, you have to be ready for the unexpected. And when you're cutting weight like that, and it slows everything down. It makes you fight sometimes in the later rounds like you're fighting in mud. And I don't know how he's going to react. It's something I have to see. Like, I can't tell you guys, well, yeah, he's going to look really super sharp at this weight, or he's going to look like complete dog shit. I don't know. It can't made him cut another division for a reason. I don't know if he's trying to find his home or what, but it's a question mark fight. I think Mendoka should win this fight, but I think Manis is live, so he is tempting in some spots to take some shots on him at 7,200. I've seen much worse fun plays.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. JSU, Mendonca, Manes, what do you see?
Yeah, well, what I see is I think this is a good fight to target for DraftKings, because the way Mendonca fights, I think he's honestly going to bring almost like that brawl type to Manes, where they're going to go at it. And Manes definitely is live to, have a big, KO or something like that. I think this fight finishes inside the distance. And at 7,200, if Manes won, he would be on the winner probably if he finishes inside the distance. So, I don't think this is a fight you want to, be lower on. I think it's a fight you should be higher on. And if you look at Manes's last couple fights, they've been against guys that have just put him on the ground. And it's not what he wants to do. He wants to stand. He wants to trade. It's like the Gravely fight where he got knocked out at the end of that first round, just absolutely dropped. I couldn't believe they didn't stop the fight. But then he comes back and he knocks Gravely out in the next round. It just shows that the dude is definitely tough, because he was wobbled after that round bell rang. He got up and he was definitely wobbly. He was not all there. And then coming back and just dropping Gravely like that, pretty badass. So I think they're going to stand and trade. I think someone goes down. I'm going to say my pick will be Mendoka by TKO or knockout, but this is a fight I want to be a part of for like multiple lineups, in DraftKings. If you're MMEing, I would be on this fight, especially if you're comparing this fight to the fight we just talked about, where the fighters are about the same pricing wise. Yeah. I'm definitely more on this fight.
Yeah, I'm certainly with you there. And very close to the same pricing. Drew, I assume this fight will be higher round than the last one. What do you have for the numbers here?
Yeah, a little bit, but not a ton. Mendoka, I have at 32.5%, so we'll call it 33%, and Manes at 20%. Mendoka's just at a weird spot. Like, I think the ceiling is obviously not as high as what Dawson can throw up at 9,400. So he is like Mendoka's 5 to 10% lower owned than any of the other 9K fighters. He's 20% lower owned than Dawson's probably going to be. So you definitely get a leverage spot here, and you actually get a price saving. So I think Mendoka is actually in a really good spot to play a healthy sum of and get some leverage against the field, even at 33%, because the higher price guys are going to get owned quite a bit on this slate. So yeah, I like Mendoka here. I will have Manes. I think that's fine at 20%. But yeah, Mendoka at 33% is actually a really nice spot to leverage the inside the distance number, which is like at 50% right now.
All right, that is Mendonca and Manes. We do go back to the women's division for the next fight. It is Carolina Kolokiewicz, slight favorite, minus 150 or so over Diana Belbita. Back to you, Mad Lab. What do you see?
It's a fight I'm not really going to target on DraftKings. I could see a situation where this fight burns me. You know what I mean? But you got to stay disciplined in certain spots, and you got to pick and choose your spots. And this is a fight I'm going to be lower owned on. The reason why is because Belbita, she hasn't really proved anything to me. Like, picking her is a really tough. I mean, what are you picking her on? Like, she hasn't fought a good level of competition. She hasn't shown that she's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. She's marketable. She's pretty. She's marketable. The UFC needs girls like that in the division. They don't want all, Christina cyborgs in there. It's got to appeal towards, the households. And she's a girl who, the guys like and girls can relate to, and that's fine. But KK fought everybody. KK fought everybody there is to fight. Whether she won or lose, she fought everybody there is to fight. She did look good in her last fight. She is getting older. That's something you got to be concerned with. And the thing with her is, if she wins this fight, she's not a finisher. This is a girl who has pillow hands. She's not going to really knock you out. She's going to stay at range. She's going to pick you apart. So where are her points really going to come from with an $8,600 price tag? So even though she should be the rightful favorite, she's got to somehow manage to capitalize on her points. And I don't know if she's going to be able to do it. 100 plus points, 1 to 5 times, current market value 2 to 5 times. So she's hitting in a 10 fight sample size. She's hitting at about 40% clip, which isn't bad. I mean, it's not horrendous, but it's just not enough for me to pull the trigger on her a lot. And Belbita, I'm not a fan. I don't think she's that good of a mixed martial artist. I think she's in there on her marketability. How long is that going to last? I don't know. But it's a fight that I'm going to kind of just sit back and just watch.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I kind of like dog or pass here, JSU, just with the price savings, but interested to hear your breakdown of Kolakiewicz and Belbita.
Yeah, from a DFS perspective, it would be dog or pass because I feel like Kolakiewicz is just a little too expensive, honestly, where she is right now at 8,600. I'm with Mad Lab, though, that I just don't think Belbita is that good. I mean, she's not. You talked about Kolakiewicz not being a finisher. She's not a finisher either. These are both decision fighters. Literally, with Belbita, avoid one thing and you can win the fight. The overhand right. Because all she wants to do is throw that overhand right. You watch the Oliveira fight. Oliveira, you watch the fight, the whole fight, guaranteed. You saw her do this. Just lean back like this 20 different times as she's throwing that overhand. Because you can see it coming a mile away, but that's her one like power shot. Everything else is pillows. So if you avoid that, the overhand right, you're going to beat someone like Belbita. And I think Kolakiewicz is good enough to just stay away from that and, you know, finish her like by decision, beat her, you know, 29-28 or something like that, and just an easy to the cards decision win. So I'm betting this by decision. I think Kolakiewicz gets it done. But for DraftKings, I won't have any Kolakiewicz. And if I had anything, it'd be Belbita. But I don't even know if I'll have her just because I think she sucks.
Well, I might have a small sprinkle, you know, in a couple lineups of KK just because everybody's thinking like us.
Well, they are, but I think you're right when you said they're totally doing this. Just she's a marketable person.
No. KK, I'm saying I might have. KK just for you because everybody's thinking like we're thinking, and in a large field GPP, you know, it's the theater of the unknown. What if? You know what I mean? What if she ends up clipping her and catching her, or she ends up utilizing? Because KK does have some grappling that she never uses. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a fight. Yeah, you ultimately, in theory, want to stay away from. But I might have a couple small shots on her just to see what happens. I'll expect them to be buried, but I'll give it a shot.
I mean, it would be the same thing with Murado, right? Like if you had that fight, it's just because it's going to be lower owned. It's not you would just want to be, you know, if you get 10% of it, you're probably like with or around the field. I don't know. Drew can give the numbers though, but.
Yeah, I still got it high. I still got this one pretty high, man. I don't know. I think you can only get in like 2 of the 9K expensive fighters, and they're just going to pepper like two of the 8K guys or girls, and then down into the 7s. I think that's what most builds do. So I got 25% for KK, and I have 30% for Belbita. So I think Belbita, everyone, like Mad Lab said, everyone's thinking the same thing. It's, you know, going to be somewhat of a close fight, probably go to decision, and you want the dog in that situation. So Belbita, 30% is definitely going to be one of the probably the second most popular dog on the card. But yeah, I think this is honestly a stay away fight, and maybe it's not even a hot take, but probably the girl fights on this slate is not really worth targeting at all anyways. So yeah, I'm off on this fight. KK at 25%. There's really no leverage there. The inside the distance number doesn't look great. Doesn't look like she can. Even if she was on the ground, I mean, she would have to just be, control time for like 13 minutes. Like that's really it. So I just don't like this fight overall. And Belbita is somewhat expensive, somewhat high owned for being a dog. I think I'm going to pass on that as well. I think I can just avoid the field if they're going to be 30% of the field playing this dog.
Yeah, I think at 30 and 25%, they're like terrible plays. Like,
absolutely.
I would play Demopoulos over them. I would I'd take the shot that Demopoulos has a chance at 7,300 over Belbita, or I think that's horrible. I think if you were getting like an ownership discount, I would get it, like Mad Lab was saying, with his theory. But if it's 30-25, then that theory's right out the window because that's way higher than they should be, I guess, even though it is an 11-fight card. So I get what Drew's saying. People need a dog. They're not going to get many of the 9K guys in there. So like 8,600, you might fall in that price range for Kolakevich as well. But I would just avoid.
And a lot of it's projection based. Like, honestly, like she's implied to win, 45% of it, we'll call it. Like at 7,600, like to get a score around 60 points, which is what most projections would have her at, is going to be in the optimal builds in optimizer. So that's also the reason why she's going to be so popular, because all the other dogs below her are getting like 40 points. So she's just an easy plug-in from a computer standpoint.
Yeah, that all makes sense. That's Kolakevich and Belbita. We go to the next fight on the card. Last fight on the prelims. It was a closely lined fight. It is Jan Kutilaba minus 135 over Philippe Lins. Madlab, what do you see between this closely lined fight here?
In theory, this is like the fight to target. You know what I mean? From a pricing perspective, from the finishing perspective, if you look at the, if you guys do follow Vegas and you look at the, inside the distance lines, like in theory, this is like a perfect fight to target. You got Kutalaba, who's either kill or be killed. And you got Lins, who's a guy who's coming from heavyweight down to light heavyweight, who's had success in light heavyweight in his last 3 fights, who's actually looked really good in every fight. His body's getting more tapered for the division. And we know that Kutalaba, when he does get tired, this is a guy who you can ultimately not knock out. The thing with Kutalaba is the guy's got upside. Like, the guy is a good athlete. He is talented, but he just can't. I always talk about this. You have to learn how to taper your skill set to your conditioning, not the other way around. You can't taper your conditioning to your skill set. You have to kind of deal with the hand that was given to you. And the guy genetically is wound with terrible cardio and conditioning. It's just what it is. And he comes out and he does the absolute cardinal sin when you have bad conditioning. He just comes out of the gates hot. He throws everything at the wall. And if he doesn't get you out of there, he blows his load. So it doesn't mean that he's not good. It doesn't mean he doesn't have good wrestling, because he does have that high upside for wrestling to get the takedowns. So he doesn't really have that control, which is good for DFS because you get up, he takes you down, it's more points. I just can never get behind this guy from a fighting perspective, because this is a guy that can 10-8 round you in round one, win round one, look like an absolute monster. But if you weather his storm, all of a sudden now in round two, about a minute in, this guy's on the back foot. This guy's on the back foot. This guy's on the back foot. And then he's there to be taken. He's like a completely different fighter. It's like Kutalaba, the UFC fighter in round one, and then Kutalaba, the regional circuit fighter in round two, and then Kutalaba, I'm not a fighter in round three. So that's what you deal with him. So when you do roster him at 8,300, which is a good price because he's got the high upside in round one, you got to hope you get it done in the first 5 minutes, because if you don't, Lins is going to completely chew this guy up. So, there's spots on both. There's value on both sides. There's value because you have 8,300 on Kutalaba. You're looking for the first round. And there's value on Lins because if he wins any which way but loose, he's going to cover. So it's a fight, in theory, you want to target. But sometimes these fights end up going to the cards, and we're like, how the fuck did that fight go to the cards? But they're cheap enough where it doesn't matter. They're cheap enough where these guys are going to have the style of throw enough fire that they're either one of these guys are going to cover. I'm just leaning more on the Lin side because you're giving me more of a window to win the fight. He is ultimately pretty durable. He fights pretty disciplined. He's not a guy who you're going to just tie into a firefight right away. He looked really good on the scale, looked bigger. Obviously, heavyweight coming down to light heavyweight, which means he's going to hydrate up. He's going to be the bigger guy. And I don't like what I'm seeing from Kutalaba from an outside of the cage perspective. He's like trying to find his personality. This is a guy who started off painting himself green, screaming in your face, getting crazy, trying to intimidate. And now he's up there and fucking wearing suits, trying to be Clark Kent. So it's like he doesn't really know who he is. And I don't think he's found who he is. He's still trying to find his way in the UFC. So good fight, high upside for a finish, a fight you guys definitely want to target. It's priced nicely, for one of these guys to possibly even be on the optimal. But from a DraftKings perspective, I'm going to lean a little bit. I'm going to have a little bit more heavier weight on Lins.
Yeah, happy to hear that. I like Lins here. He is my favorite upset on this card. Not much of an upset, just a small dog, but I do like him to win this fight. JSU, Lins, Kutalaba, what do you see?
Yeah, I see a good scoring fight for DraftKings for sure. I mean, it could, like Bad Lab said, I guess, be one of those cards where we, at the end of the day, we're like, how'd that fight go to decision? It's very possible. with two guys like this. But Lynn's definitely has, I think, more of the advantage from a gas tank perspective. So as the fight goes longer, like Madlab already said, it's going to lean more to the Lynn side. So I think if you're on Jan, finish early, first round finish is a good way to go. And if you're on the Lynn side, I'd take a shot on like the second or third round prop for him to finish. Honestly, I'm seeing 18-1 for a third round KO or TKO. I'd take a shot at 18-1 that Lynn's gets that. But I do think that Jan is better.
What's
overall.
Lynn's by sub?
It's 16-1 in the third round. So I think it's 900 in the second round and 16 in the third. So yeah,
that's by knockout or by sub?
That's by sub.
Oh wow! All right.
Knockouts 18-1, and I forget what's the second round. Knockout is 850 plus 850 in the second round, plus 1800 in the third round for knockout, and it's plus 1600 submission in round 2, and plus 3500 in round 3.
Wow.
For submission.
Wow.
So
some value
there you go. I mean, I think if you take Lynn's, you look at the later round finishing, whether it's submission or KO, and you go with one of those, round 2 or 3. That's the way I would bet Lynn's. And if you bet Jan, I just bet him inside the distance here to finish round 1. So yeah, I think Jan could get this done in round 1 though, because like Madlab said, he throws everything into almost getting that guy out in round 1. So he's gonna give it his all here. And Lynn's, he's looked better since he's come down, but the last fight, I didn't really like what I saw from him, and he just consistently was trying desperately to get takedowns and all that stuff, and it just looked like a lot of desperation at certain points for Lynn's later in that fight, which irritated me a little bit. I know he got the win, but it didn't look as good as I thought it would, and I was heavy on Lynn, so I was happy he got the win. But I think Jan, I don't think that's a good strategy against Jan 1 anyways. I would honestly just try and like let him almost blow his shot in round 1, try and just keep him at range, let him blow that shot, and then in round 2 and round 3, that's when you put the pressure on him. So it'll be interesting how Lynn's attacks this fight. If you see him aggressively come forward early, which I think would be a mistake, or if you see him kind of waiting back, almost like letting Jan come first and try and gas out.
Yeah, I assume this will be a heavily owned fight. Drew, what do you have for the numbers between Cutelaba and Lynn's?
Yeah, but I still think it's under-owned, to be honest. I have Cutelaba at 37% and Lynn's at 24%. So, yeah, I think this is a fight you can go overweight on and feel pretty comfortable. Either way you shake it, Cutelaba, wins in first round or second round, it's probably optimal. Lynn's, survives the first round, can make it to the second round. He's actually the favorite to win in the third round. He's plus 950, I see. And Cutelaba is 20-1 in round 3. So he actually goes from like a dog to even in round 2 to a pretty substantial favorite in round 3. So there's actually quite a bit of value on Lynn's, to Madlab's point. And at 7,900, I think honestly more ownership goes to Cutelaba as we go into the slate, and Lynn's kind of trends downward, closer to 20%. So I lean Lynn's as a pretty good value. But yeah, I want both sides of this fight. Obviously, Cutelaba can win in round 1 or 2 and be optimal at the price, especially. And if it goes to decision and Lynn's, survives, he certainly can be optimal. So both sides of this could be a really good fight to target and load up.
You got to remember too is, I don't know if you've ever been inside of a cage before, but the way the camera angles are inside of a cage, they make it look it looks really, really big. But when you're in there, if you actually walked into a cage and shut the door, you almost feel like you're in a bathroom. Like that's how small these cages are. And on top of that, you guys got to remember that whenever they're fighting in the apex, they're fighting in a smaller cage. So it kind of forces these guys. You can't really use a lot of real estate. It makes you fight. So when you get two guys that are prone to fight, prone to go for takedowns, prone to wrestle, you got to kind of 1.25x that you're going to get a little bit more than you would if they were fighting in T-Mobile Arena or somewhere else. So these guys kind of match up in that formula.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense to me. We'll get to the main card before we do. Reminder, if you do want to join the winner circle over at Run Pure Sports, Promo code right now, JSU, is at RPS 15, I think.
Yes, RPS 15.
Yeah, that'll get you 15% off your first payment. Fun time of year for sports. Of course, we got baseball playoffs. We got all the UFC stuff up. If you want to read Mad Lab's breakdown of every fight, if you want to get all the picks from the RPS guys, you can get that over at runpuresports.com. And, of course, huge NFL Sunday and all the other sports coming up tomorrow. So RPS 15, join the winners, and that'll get you 15% off your first payment. Let's get to the main card. I think it's honestly a pretty fun main card. I think all 5 fights are intriguing to me, and I'm excited for this one. First one that we'll talk about is Bill Algeo against Alexander Hernandez. It is another very, very closely lined fight. Alexander Hernandez, small favorite, sitting around -120. This one pretty much a coin flip to go the distance or not as well. So should be a good scrap to kick off this main card. Back to you, Mad Lab. What do you see, Algeo and Hernandez?
Yeah, this is my main event for the card, this one. And the reason why is because I know both of these guys really well. I mean, I don't know Hernandez personally. I know Algeo personally, but I don't know. I was on Hernandez very early on in his career. I thought that the kid was super explosive, super athletic. He had good power. And the most important thing that drew me to him was he was well-spoken. He was intelligent. That's one of the most important things to me when I break down young fighters. I want to know they're intelligent. And it's not because I want them to speak on the mic well or anything like that. I want to know that you can absorb things and you can kind of translate them and put them into motion. You could think on your feet. You could think in quick situations. And let's be honest, as cringeworthy as sometimes as Hernandez is, the kid is a very intelligent kid. He's very well spoken. He's very sharp. He's very quick. So that's what drove me on to him when he fought Dariush. When he came in on short notice to fought Dariush, I had my whole clan pile in on him in DraftKings, and that night we all took down every tournament when he ended up knocking down Dariush. But since then, he's never really evolved. I don't know what happened. There's been like a roadblock with him for some reason. And I think the biggest proponent is almost back where we talked about tapering your style to your conditioning. The kid is muscled up. No matter what weight class he's in, it takes a lot of oxygen to oxygenate those bloods, lactic acid buildup, and he's got a very bizarre looking frame. If you look at him, his muscles are tied together very differently. It's not like really your normal somatotype. He's got like a very broad looking body, which, the lactic acid is going to build up a lot quicker. He hasn't figured that out yet, which is really strange to me. I also don't like that he's been hopping weight classes. This is a kid who's 155, 145. 155, 145. So here he is now back at 145, which I honestly don't think is a really good move for him. Algeo, on the other hand, this is a guy who I called numerous fights of his on the Ring of Combat circuit, where I was actually cage-side watching this kid. And that's how I was kind of introduced to him. And we haven't seen like the best Bill Algeo yet. I've seen him do things in Ring of Combat that I haven't seen him do in the UFC yet. Call it maybe the level of competition is higher. He can't get him off. Or maybe he just hasn't been able to. And the problem with him is he's been fighting up or down to the level of competition. He doesn't have to be in these wars that he's been in. Sometimes he makes these fights harder than they are. He made the Andre Fili fight a lot harder than it was. And I actually picked Fili in that spot because I knew that's exactly what he was going to do. He was going to make that fight harder than what it was. And he's the better fighter than Fili, but Fili won the split decision. So in a fight like this, what do? I got 2 guys that I was super high on in the regional circuit. Which way do I go? Well, you go back in history and you look at what is the most important thing outside of all their talents. When they bend, do they bend more? Do they bend more, or do they bend and break? And Hernandez has shown the innate ability to bend and break, and Algeo has shown the ability to bend, but not break. I don't know why this line flipped. This line completely flipped. You had Algeo, who was a favorite, and now you have Algeo, who's a slight dog in this spot. I don't know if there's an injury. I did look into it. I did make some calls, and everybody who got back to me told me, they're like, we didn't hear anything. So I don't know why this fight flipped, but I don't see a situation where Hernandez beats Algeo here. Like, I think Algeo wins this fight in duration, in the marathon. I think Hernandez, if he comes out and does what he did to Dariush and maybe catches Algeo, that's one thing. But when you've seen it and you know he has the ability to do that, you're ready for it. Dariush wasn't ready for that. He wasn't ready for that quick explosion. He wasn't ready for that quick shot. He got caught cold. He went out. Like, Algeo knows that this kid's going to come out and he's going to fire something. I don't know. I think Hernandez has the ability to beat him. I really do. I think Hernandez has the ability to beat Algio because Algio, like I said, he will showboat. He'll let you get into the fight. But talent for talent, Algio's the better fighter. Talent for talent, Algio's the better fighter. So, I got to lean that way. I think it's going to come to a point where it's going to be a very good fight. But when it's time to bend and break, I think Hernandez is the guy that breaks first.
Yeah, I think both fighters are going to have their moments in this fight, but I'm with you, Mad Lab. I'll take Algio slightly if I'm just picking the fight straight up. Let's go to you, JSU, Algio Hernandez.
Yeah, I mean, the moment for Hernandez is going to be in round 1 because after that is when Algio is going to break him. And I think Algio even kind of knows that's what's going to happen. And you might watch the fight, and during the fight in round 1, you might say, wow, Hernandez is winning. He's winning. But it's not going to last. And I think that the fact that the line is flipped or whatever, I don't understand it either because I'm on Algio. I've been on Algio the whole time. So I'll take the dog here for sure because I just think in rounds 2 and 3, he's just going to just keep moving forward and keep pressuring Hernandez, and Hernandez is going to eventually just fold. And he's going to finish him, honestly. I think he finishes him in round 2 or 3. And it's not because I think Hernandez isn't talented. It's just what happens to him. The Quarantillo fight, same thing. Like it's just what happens to this kid. He's super talented, but sometimes it all just doesn't come together. You know what I mean? Mad Lab's talked about this before about guys. You might have all the talent in the world, but sometimes it just doesn't all come together and happen for fighters. And I think that's why he's moving weight classes, Mad Lab, right? You would assume he's trying to find his spot, right? He's trying to find where he's best. And it's never good when they start doing that stuff. So I don't understand it, but I'll take the dog here. I'm definitely going to take him, and I'll take him inside the distance to get this finish here on Hernandez probably by stoppage or whatever. But yeah.
You're going to be able to tell, guys. One thing about Alexander Hernandez that I noticed in his career, even in the regional circuit, you'll be able to tell when he's checked out. Not checked out meaning he's quit fight, and that's the thing. But you'll know he shows it on his face. Certain guys show it on their face. There's guys that they're getting beat from pillar to post, and they'll keep calling you in, and they'll keep laughing, and they'll smack your hand in the cage like you hit them with a good shot, but they're hurt, and they're hurt. They have a good poker face. He doesn't. This guy shows it on his face. When he's defeated in there and he knows that he's on his way out, you could just see it. He's got a certain look on his face, and you're going to start seeing that look. If he's going to lose the fight, you're going to start seeing that look. He's going to start getting confused. He'll start backing up. He won't be trash talking no more. He won't be moving no more. He'll be kind of a stoic fighter looking for big movements to try to get him out of there out of desperation. And that's when his cardio is just going to fucking hit a wall.
Yeah, possible live betting opportunity maybe after the first round on Algio on this one. Drew, we got 3 for 3 on Algio. What do you see between Algio and Hernandez?
Yeah, this is a super fishy fight, but it's like a perfect storm for Algio to come in really low owned. I got him at 24% now, and Hernandez at 35%. I think people jam in the favorite that's priced down in the dog range. So, but yeah, the interesting thing for me that stands out the most is Algio goes from a slight dog, obviously money line, he's a dog. He's a slight dog in round 1, and he's immediately a favorite and a pretty substantial favorite in round 2 and a bigger favorite in round 3. So I'm not sure, exactly how that correlates with the money line number, but I will say outside of round 1 with Hernandez, Algio becomes like a 9K favorite.
Well, here's a way you guys can angle this too. If you're someone like JSU or someone who took the fight early and you took him at minus 130, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that they're going to stand on their ground. They're not going to want to hedge out. If you still do like him, I don't think Hernandez finishes him. So you might want to look at the plus 3.5 for Algio, because once he hit dog territory, that plus 3.5 rounds flips into his favor as well. And I think you could grab that at minus 125. So you might want to play that juice a little bit for you're getting that. If it goes to the cards and he does lose at 29-28, what the fuck are you laughing at, dude? I don't get it.
I'm just thinking in my head, no hedging. This is something Mad Lab would say. No hedging. Grab your fucking nuts and make a pick. Right?
I'm just saying, if you want it, you're adding a little more to him, but you're backing it up.
No, I get what you're saying.
That's what I'm not worried about it. Unless there's an injury that I don't know about, I'm really not worried about it.
Mad Lab doesn't understand. I don't hedge anything ever. I never hedge. But it is safe, obviously, to do if you're someone like that. You know what I mean? Who did do that earlier? But I never hedge. So,
Drew, anything more to add on this one?
No, I mean, I lean Algio. I think I'm going to have both sides. Again, it's kind of like a fishy situation, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Algio's numbers as the fight progresses, it really leans in his favor. So I just don't know how it slanted so hard into Hernandez. But outside of that, just from a strictly money line number, Algio looks pretty good outside of barring an injury or something like that. So yeah, I'm on the same page. I think it's a pretty even fight, but Algio is my lean, and 8,400 is going to be very low.
You got to remember too, there's a lot of trucks. I call it the truck train. Anyone breathes when Lab is talking.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is true. That's why I love laughing when Mad Lab talks, because he thinks I'm always laughing at him. And sometimes shit pops up on my screen, whether it's from like the Discord or the comments.
You only do it when I'm talking. So I mean, what do you want me to expect?
I do it. It feels like it's on purpose now, though. I got to keep it up. You know what I mean?
So, but listen, there are truck trains. You guys know that. Like nowadays, you go on Twitter and it's like everybody's an analyst. Everybody will post one play, lock, bet, this and that, and everybody just fucking piles in. So that actually can be uneducated money moving in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People just want to chase the line movement.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they think that's a sharp move, so they're just going to keep piling it in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense to me. We'll move to another good one, Drew Dober and Ricky Glenn. Dober, one of the other really three big favorites on this card. One of them is Drew Dober, sitting minus 425 or so. You can actually, it looks like, get him at 395 on DraftKings, which kind of stands out as the only line under 400. But yeah, Dober, one of the more exciting fighters, in my opinion, to watch in the UFC, win or lose. He's had some crazy back and forth fights recently, and yeah, I like him to finish this one via knockout, honestly. But Lab, break it down, Dober and Glenn.
Yeah, you guys got to look at too. Why are they on this main card? Who's the A side of this? It's Dober. Glenn is a good guy. I call Glenn the Joe Dirt of MMA. Like back in the day, he had the mullet. He's a really good fighter. Like if you guys don't know Rick Glenn, like he's a really, really, really good fighter. Very well rounded, very tough. The problem with him is he doesn't fight enough. He's not really a guy who's fighting 2 or 3 times a year. Now he's being a little bit more active, but he always has these layoffs. He'll fight one time, he'll take off a year. And that's okay if you're a dynamic fighter, if you're a very young Anthony Pettis, if you're one of these guys that are kind of ahead of the curve a little bit, that's okay. But when you're a guy like Rick Glenn, who's an old style fighter, he's like a 90s based style fighter. That's his style. You can't do that because, believe it or not, every month now, every couple months now in this day and age, the game will little by little start passing you by. You know what I mean? And he's on the wrong side of 30. He's got that old school, like Sam Alvey type, just generic style. And then you get a guy in Drew Dober who he trains in elevation. He hits like a ton of bricks. He's got good wrestling. He's super, super durable. So, like, where is Glenn's path to win? Also, he's coming off a loss. So you know that Dober's got a fucking axe to grind now. Like, it's really tough for me to sit here and say, like, yeah, man, 6,700 for Glenn, all in. It's really, really, really tough for me to say that. I think that I'm losing my train of thought here with fucking JSU.
What did I even do? I didn't even do anything this time. I didn't laugh.
It's a hard sell for me. It's a really hard sell for me to sit here and try to make all these justifications on why I think Glenn can win this fight. I'm with you, DC. I think Dober wins. I think it's going to be tough to get Glenn out of there. He's a tough dude, but I think the leg kicks, the accumulation of damage, I could see like maybe in the later fight, the ref just steps in and says enough.
Yeah, I can see that, and I do like Dober a lot today, JSU. I will say,
but is he going to cover 9,500? That's the question.
Yeah, that's somewhat of a question. And I also think if like Dober just throws such caution to the wind that even though I think he's clearly the superior fighter, I wouldn't be that shocked if Glenn pulled a crazy upset just because Dober fights, a little bit recklessly. It's awesome to watch, but he does leave a lot of openings for other fighters, in my opinion. JSU, Dober, Glenn, what do you got?
So first off, I got to say steamroller. I had to say that because I was one of the only people on earth that not only picked steamroller to finish Drew Dober last time. Oh, he's got the best chin ever. The whatever they call him, chin, whatever. He got knocked out by my boy Steamroller. But
your boy's getting fucking murked in his next fight, right?
Okay, well, you know what? We don't need to go there right now. We're talking about what happened last time, all right? Leave him alone. I locked him on every single lineup on DraftKings. I told everyone he was locked. He was 6,900 or something like that. It was ridiculous. The line was way too wide. Everyone was on Dober. Got his ass knocked out. So I'm fine picking against Drew Dober. It's not like I love Drew Dober. You guys know too, I always will take shots on dogs when I think dogs have an actual chance. The reason why I liked Matt Favola in that last fight was because I knew that he at least had like the speed and also a good chin and the strength to have a firefight with Drew Dober and come out the victor. I knew that. I don't think Glenn, even though I think Glenn has some power, I don't think Glenn has the speed that Matt Favola has to in a firefight beat Drew Dober, who still does have a really good chin and is durable and stuff like that. Just because of one knockout, I don't think we're not going to see it. And I think when Dober comes forward, because listen, he's going to do this to everyone. I mean, he did it to Favola. He's going to move forward. He's going to try and get you on your back foot. He's going to push you up against the cage, and he's going to try and make this a really difficult, uncomfortable fight for you. And that's not the style of fight Glenn wants. Glenn wants space, right? They're like the opposite fighter, in my opinion. So I think it's just a really bad matchup for someone like Glenn. And I think the UFC knows that too. The UFC likes Dober. They want him to, get back on the victory column. Because why? He's a fun fighter. And we all know this, but these fights are made sometimes when guys lose, they want to get them back up and they give them a spot against the guy who they know is like a good spot for them. I think this is a good spot for Dober. And I think the UFC knows it, honestly.
Dober's even banging. Dober's banging one of the fighter's sisters.
Not his sister. Not Glenn's sister.
No. One of the fighters. Oh. One of the fighters. One of his teammates, I think. He's banging his sister. I think he's married.
Like, that's not cool, man. You knock him out and you're like, that's a tough scene, but at least it's not Glenn's sister.
He's married to one of his teammates' sisters. I forget who it is, though.
All right, well, an easy way to say that Dober's going to win this inside the distance. I want to take one of these dogs at 6K. I think the next guy we're going to talk about in the 6K range has a better shot than Glenn, honestly. So I'll take my chances there, and I'll probably be either Dober or pass. I don't know for DFS, though, if Dober's the best 9K fighter, because we'll talk about Dawson, in the last fight. But, he's definitely up there. I do think he finishes this fight. And also, Mad Lab, these odds, Mad Lab would be way higher than -1,000 against me. I'm fucking 5'6" on a good day, and I'm 142 pounds on a good day.
A little bit of a size discrepancy.
Just throwing it out there.
Nick Hine, that was the guy he was banging. Nick Hine's sister.
All right, now that we know that information, Drew, can you break down the Dober and Glenn fight for us?
Yeah, I just inputted that, and I get a little bumped in. No, I think
it was Nick.
I'm going to tell you right now if we give him a bump. Hold on. Let's see.
Well, a bump on who?
Drew Dober. Hold on.
Dober. He's banging on Nick Fletcher.
You talk.
Yeah, so obviously Dober's in a great spot, but he is expensive, and honestly, I think a decision has to be made between him and Dawson. So I got Dober at 38%, and I got Glenn at 12%. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there. Like if you're building 100, 150 lineups, sure, have a little bit of Glenn in there. If you have 10%, you got 15 lineups. But if you're playing 20 max or fewer, I don't see any need to play Glenn even at 12 or 10% ownership. But yeah, Dober. 40% owned for Dober obviously has some of the best upside on the slate. The problem is his price. And obviously with Dawson and Piper right below him, that's an issue. So, I lean Dober, obviously. I think he's going to finish inside the distance. But there is a path, I guess, if Dawson has a ceiling, which he has a ceiling of like 130 points, and Dober only scores like 110, Dober's not needed. So that's the issue. I lean Dober here. I think he's in a good spot. I actually think he's a good leverage spot. It just comes down to lineup construction. Trying to jam in him with Dawson is like, you have some really ugly builds.
Yeah, makes sense. Dober, Glenn should be a fun one. This next one I think should be fun too. A little bit of a contrast in styles. Joaquin Buckley and Alex Morono. Buckley obviously with the huge power. Morono less so, but better technique perhaps in the strikes. I do expect this one to mostly stay on the feet.
Sure. Look at what is it called? Look at that one comment when he goes, let's see if he gets a bump. And Catholic Burner goes, speaking of bump, I just did one.
We could all use a little bump on this Saturday, that's for sure. Buckley Morono, Mad Lab. I think another fun style.
Oh, shut up, B-Nair. Sit back down, all right? I'm 5'6", all right? That's what it said on the program when I played hoops. I'm 5'6", and I ain't saying nothing. And my license says 5'6" too. So suck it. Keep going.
Mad Lab, Morono, Buckley.
Oh, all right. So listen, I had fun breaking down this fight because these guys are complete polar opposites. You know, when you look at this, you got a guy in Buckley who is extremely athletic, explosive, good genetic code, powerful, dynamic. He's got all those things. The one thing that he doesn't have, though, is he doesn't have great technical ability. He's got good striking ability. He claims that he's a good wrestler. That's really remains to be seen. But he does have all the attributes to be like a physical specimen, almost like an ARA, like a explosive, powerful. He could catch you at any time. It doesn't matter your chin. And he's going against a guy in Morono who's not athletic. He doesn't have a good genetic wiring. But he's extremely fundamentally sound. He's got good technical ability. He's intelligent. So it's like, where do you go from there? I was always of the sound mind that you want to lean towards, in boxing, you have the boxer and the puncher. You always go with the boxer. This is a situation where I think people are overlooking Morono a little bit for one reason. When you look at a guy like this and you see his style, you're like, look how fucking goofy foot he's in there. Like, he's jumping around. He's not doing much. And then when you see a guy who's got the technique and it looks pretty in there, it looks nice when he's moving his head and stuff. Those are the guys that you see all the time in the gym. When I go to the gym and I see these guys training and they're doing the same thing and they're throwing their combinations and you see that all the time. You got to still figure it out, but you see it. A guy like Morono is hard to figure out. There's a guy who's not in and out of the pocket. He kind of jumps up and down like a rabbit. He moves in all these awkward ways, and they're the guys that usually give you trouble. Those guys that come out of the woodwork that have very bizarre styles, they're the ones who give you trouble, not because you can't fight them, because you only have a certain amount of time to figure them out. And Morono's that guy. Like, Morono will give you fits in there because he's got a style that you really don't see every day. You know what I mean? So Buckley's a guy that now for 15 minutes, he's got to take some time to figure him out. But at the same token, he's also got to make sure his cardio is going to withstand for when he does figure him out and he has the output to get him out of there. Morono's usually a pretty durable guy. He doesn't allow you to fight your fight. He'll get into a firefight with you, but I don't think he's going to be that stupid to just sit in a pocket with Buckley early. I like Morono's chances here. I really, really do. I like his chances here. I think this is a kid who finds ways to win. He uses his awkward ability. He's not there to make like, he's there to make money. Everyone's there to make money, but this isn't his sole source of income. He does this for a bonus. He does this for fun. He goes in there and he fights loose. He comes in and he tells everybody, I'm probably never going to be a champion. I just love what I do. He's got no pressure on him. If he wins, he wins. If he loses, he goes back to his businesses and he does what he does. Where Buckley's got pressure on him, like, he loses a fight, his career now takes a big, big dip. This is the way he makes his money. He's always calling for fights. He's always doing. So I like Morono. I like everything that's sitting on Morono's side for this one. I like that he's able to go in there and fight loose with no expectations, and he just gives it his all. He's got to watch the kill shot early, but I think the more this fight bleeds, the more it favors Morono. So at 7,500, I'm gonna have quite a few shares of him here. I'm not gonna fade Buckley because we've seen what Buckley can do in spots, but I do like Morono in this spot.
Yeah, this is a weird one for me because I do like Morono to win this fight, but it's by decision and it's probably, kind of not incredible volume, mostly on the feet, if not all on the feet. And I don't know if he gets the knockout against Buckley, whereas the other hand, I think if Buckley wins, it's probably scoring well. It's probably an early knockout. So I'm a little torn on this one. I do lean Morono to pull off the decision win, though. JSU, your thoughts here, Buckley Morono.
Yeah, so man, I thought I was going to be different than a lot of these guys, but I'm on the Morono side too. I think when you get in there, so first of all, if you bet Morono and you look at both these guys when they get in the cage and you don't know what I'm talking about, like you'll see it when you see them both in the cage together. Like Buckley's going to look a lot different than Morono. And then when you watch them fight, like Bad Lab said, the style of Morono is just so weird. It looked like he's bouncing on his toes, like his hands are really high and he's doing this. Like it's just awkward. But I think he almost gives the illusion of like, oh, look at this guy. I'm not afraid of this guy. So then guys will start moving forward. Like, I'm not afraid of this dude. And then he starts throwing and he pumps that jab out and he hits you a few times and he's quick with it. And you're like, oh shit, that's got some pop. It happened to Semmelsberger. If you watch the Semmelsberger fight, that dude started moving forward and Morono started piecing him up to the point where Semmelsberger started backing up. You don't see that from a guy like Semmelsberger, right? He keeps moving forward and he started backing up. And that's when he realized, like, oh, this dude, he's stronger than he looks. He's better than he looks, when you just look at him. And I think that's what's going to happen to Buckley. And if you look at what he does, I think, honestly, if he wins, he has the knockout power. I think Morono's smart enough to try and, at least evade that a little bit. I think he would win with, pressure, though. Like, he kind of just, overwhelms him after the first round or two. We have seen Morono get tired, in the third round against Semmelsberger. He got hit with that knee, got a little tired too at the end, almost tried to panic wrestle at points or grapple. And he doesn't even like to grapple, even though he's amazing at it. And for some reason, the dude is a master black belt, whatever you call it. Mad Labs probably knows exactly what he is, but he's legit and he doesn't like to use it because he wants to bang. This might be one of those spots where against someone like Buckley, he might need to use it just a little bit just because he's so high level and Buckley has so much power. So I wouldn't be shocked if he did try to use it earlier in fights than he normally does. But I think this is a spot where he can win a decision, honestly. So I'm going to go Morono. I think he's better than what people think. And he's in all of his fight, even in his losses, he gives good performances and he's right there. He's close in even his losses. So it's not like he's getting starched even when he loses. He's, in the fight always. If you look at some of his losses recently, he was winning a lot of those fights and then just, got caught. So I like him and I'll take the discount. I don't know how well he scores for DraftKings in a decision win, probably somewhere between 70 and 85 or something like that, which could be on the winner. I don't know, depending on the dogs that win. But, I'll have some for sure.
Well, real quick, before you get into the stats, when I talk about style, what was that?
Damn, now just random noises are pissing off Mad Lab.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Something on my end. I don't know what dropped, though.
So, when I talk about styles make fights and when you look at their styles, you also got to look at the flip side of the table. And it's very important you guys do that. You got to look at, okay, he's got this style, he's got that style. Can he figure out that style and can he figure out that style? One thing back in the day, if you guys watch boxing, I don't know if you guys remember Prince Nassim. You remember Prince Nassim?
No.
All right, Prince Nassim was a guy who had a ton of success in boxing, and he wasn't a good boxer. He threw horrible punches. He didn't have any technique, but he was so fucking weird. He used to dance in the ring. Do you remember Prince Nassim, JSU?
No, I do not.
I do not. Later on, go on YouTube, and if you guys haven't heard of him, he was a boxer that used to do all these crazy things in the ring, in boxing ring. He used to dance and stuff, and guys that were so much better than him would lose to him. And when he was first coming up, I would be picking him. They're like, bro, you of all people think this guy's good? I go, no, I don't think he's good, but I don't think he can figure him out. I think he can figure him out, but I don't think he can figure him out. So there's certain elements there's certain guys that are very intelligent, like a Wonder Boy Thompson, who could figure guys out. I don't know if Buckley can figure him out. It's not that he's not the better fighter. I just don't think he can figure him out.
There's no way Buckley's coming in that fight going, oh, I'm afraid of that dude. He's definitely going to move forward on him. In those big explosive plays is what Buckley does. He likes those explosive movements. That's where Morono can catch him, honestly. That's where he can be caught and he can like catch him in a bad spot. It's different than what happened in the other fight with Means, where he actually threw the spinning, I think it was the spinning elbow, and then Means just got under him and he caught him in the guillotine. But like that could happen where he just catches him in a bad spot from one of those big movements that he likes to do, because he likes all those like big explosive movements.
Drew, numbers, Buckley, Morono.
Yeah. I'm going to lean a little bit more into the numbers on this fight. So I got Buckley pretty high rank for me. So I got Buckley at 32% owned and Morono at 15% owned. So I do like Morono. I'm going to play some Morono at 7,500. But Buckley stands out quite a bit for me. 8,700. I mean, he's got, round 1 and round 2 odds that mirror like Pfeiffer and even Dover. So like he's 2.5 to 1 in round 1. He's 4 to 1 in round 2 to win. So I really do like that. Buckley at 30%. I'm going to have a really big chunk of, and honestly at 8,700, he fits a lot of builds. Like that's a pretty nice spot to fill lineups with and not eat into a ton of salary. So I do like Morono at 7,500. I think he's live to win. But Buckley has huge upside. I think he has equal upside to some of the 9K fighters, and only 30% owned. Sign me up.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, we finally made it. Mad Lab, you do get to talk about this fight. 10 fights after you were supposed to bring it up, but we go to Joe Pfeiffer, big favorite here over Razak Hassan. I'm looking forward to this one. It is Pfeiffer sitting around -400. For those who missed it, go on your Pfeiffer rant to kick this card.
I'm not going to – you guys heard that. I'm not going to go crazy about that. But long story short is I think Pfeiffer is overblown. I think that the Contender Series has the ability to get this younger crowd and the younger viewership with the marketing and the social media and stuff to kind of mold who they want. It's almost like WWE in a sense, where they will make a person a heel. They'll say they're going to hate you now, or they're going to love you now, or they're like, so the Contender Series and the Dana White marketing machine has the ability to do that with the younger generation. And I think they're doing that with Pfeiffer. I think he's a good fighter. Any fighter that's from Philly, they come from that area with, the guys that he trains with. You have to be tough. You have to have a semblance of toughness to you. But I do think he's very overrated. I don't think this kid is ever going to be a champion. I don't think he's ever going to compete for a belt. It's just my opinion. And I'm not super high on this guy. Like this whole thing, like I said back before, with he's leaning on the he came from nothing, and I came from nothing, and I came from nothing. Like everybody's come from nothing. 10% of fighters come from something. 90% of them, all the guys I've ever trained with when I was back in Patterson and stuff like that, these guys, some of these guys even slept in the gym, and they were amateurs. They weren't even making money. So like I don't utilize that as, oh my God, this guy's tough. He came from nothing. Like that story's getting old, and he leans on it in every interview. But the good things that he brings is he is a tough kid. He does have power. He does have this odd confidence about himself, which is very important in fighting. It's not only about, physical, it's also about mental. But there is a very big danger zone in this fight for him, because ARA is a guy who he's probably more athletic than him. He's more explosive than him. He's got more power than him. He's got a black belt in judo, which he never uses, so that kind of cancels itself out. But if they are in a clinch and he does find a situation where he can, throw him or do something, he has the ability to do it. He just doesn't do it. He's one of those guys who fell in love with his hands. He fell in love with the knockout. He fell in love with the bonus. And for someone like ARA, he could be leaning away from the wrestling and the tie-up exchange because he knows his cardio is not that good. And it takes more cardio to kind of lock a guy up and bring him to the ground and hold him there. And so there are situations that ARA doesn't have confidence in himself, but there is a major danger zone for 6,900 in the first round for ARA to click Pfeiffer and show him something that he's never seen before. I think ultimately the longer this fight goes, the UFC is pushing Pfeiffer. They want him to win this fight. They want to Dana White loves his Contender Series guys for whatever reason. So I think on paper, what the storyline is written here, that Pfeiffer's probably going to finish this fight somewhere in the later rounds. But I'm going to tell you, 9,300, I do not like that price tag for Pfeiffer. I think this fight's a lot more dangerous than people think. ARA does have a chip on his shoulder for whatever reason in this fight with all fighters. Like he's calling all these guys out. I don't know what his deal is, but he's dangerous, man. And he's a guy that you guys got to remember, not too long ago, he was sitting in the 9,000 bracket. in DraftKings. He was the guy like on the card where you were like, dude, highest upside, ARA. Now all of a sudden he's sitting at 6,900 against Piper, who's good, but he's not this guy that you're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's the next contender. So, beware here. Don't get bit too much by that marketing machine, and know that ARA is the real deal when he's dialed in and when his gas tank is there. He is very dangerous. So I'm going to have, my fair share of, not my fair share, but I'm going to have a decent share of ARA. I'll probably be a little bit more over the field than a lot of people. And as far as Piper, his price tag, because it's so high, it's going to kind of even me out with him a little bit. So I might have the same exact ownership on both guys. I'm expecting Piper to win this fight the longer it goes, but I can absolutely see a situation here where ARA, puts him out in round one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, important call on this card, JSU, is ranking the 9K fighters. They're all kind of around that minus 350 to 400 range. And then a lot of builds, honestly, you got to pick one of the guys to beat those guys, right? It kind of opens up everything. It's an interesting card in that way, only 11 fights. And, these are the three big favorites. So ARA is my favorite of the big underdogs, and I think maybe the highest upside of the three as well. Your thoughts here, Piper and Razak Al-Hassan?
Yeah, my thoughts are exactly that. For DraftKings perspective, I would actually lean the dog. I don't like Piper in the 9K range as much as people probably will, and it's probably an unpopular take because everyone wants him to be good. I get it. I want him to be good too. He looks good, but he hasn't really been tested, and this dude's got real power. I mean, tested like this guy, Hassan, has real actual, that right hand of his, he loads up on it sometimes. He's almost waiting for that big right hand shot though, which is one thing I don't love because he's just, he'll honestly like clinch up to and let you kind of hit him a little bit when he's tired just to kind of regain it to then load up on one big shot. He did it against Buckley, and Buckley in the first 2 rounds was like kind of piecing him up that way. And then somehow like he started like he got Buckley to the ground in the 3rd round. And it was just a weird thing where he won that 3rd round. But I think his gas tank has to be a little bit better throughout those fights. And I could see a situation where he kind of rocks Piper early. Piper's like, oh crap. Okay. I got to be a little more measured against this guy. I can't just like run right at him because he's got real power. And this fight could actually go over what people think. I think this fight goes over. I don't know if it's 1.5. I haven't looked at the line yet, but I think it definitely goes over 1.5. And I think Hassan has an actual chance. Like for someone who's like that big of a dog, I think the line is a little wide, and I would be more towards the dog in this fight. So it's a dog or pass fight for me from a betting standpoint, from a DraftKings standpoint. I'm not betting minus, 165 by KO for Piper. I'm just not betting that. Like I've enough respect for Al-Hassan that I'll just go dog or pass here. And if it burns me and Piper finishes him in the first like minute and gets the bonus, then I'll lose. But if not, then I think, you're going to be live with one of these other 9K guys who are going to score better. And I think Piper's going to be very measured. The way he talks to Mad Lab, it definitely seems like he's going to be very smart about who he fights, when he fights him, how he goes about it in the cage. And I don't think Al-Hassan's someone he's just going to run right through.
Well, that's another thing that I look at all the time. I really do look at their interviews. I look at their demeanors and how they talk. And if you ever watch him on some of his outlets, when they're not talking about ARA, he talks shit about fighters. Oh, he's a bum. I'll fuck him up. He's with his shirt off, with his sunglasses, like the whole Kobe Covington. Then as soon as they bring up ARA, his tune changes. He's like, well, no, I know he's a real dangerous guy. And I know this guy has the ability to knock him out. So it's in his head that he knows, like, this is a guy that, yeah, by all rhymes and reasons, everybody's kind of writing him off. But if you're a real mixed martial artist and you know the danger zones of the fight, he knows that, like, listen, I can't just go in and storm the fucking gates with this guy.
Yeah, makes sense. Drew, what do you got here for the numbers? And like we said, kind of a big decision with the three big favorite 9K fighters and where you go from there.
Yeah, I got Piper at 41%, so he's up there. So to Mad Lab's point, he probably be pretty comfortable fading that ownership because he's going to be the second highest owned in the 9K range. As far as ARA, I got him at 12% right now, and I actually have him as a leverage spot in every single round. I think his KO number is pretty good. He's definitely my favorite dog in the 6K range and probably below 7,600. But yeah, ARA is definitely live to win via KO. I have him, probably my sixth highest fighter ranking overall in the entire slate. So I'm still going to play some Piper. I think my goal is trying to decide between the 9K fighters is to go into SaberSim and set a 10% gap around their field for Piper and Dober and just see what comes out. Because like I said, you can't really fit Dober and Dawson. It gets really ugly. And if you throw in ARA, it definitely opens things up. So I'm going to try to be a little bit loose and see, what actually builds. But yeah, I want to have some exposure to Piper at 9,300. I just don't know how much just yet. 4,100 or 41% is a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And yeah, I'll be rooting for ARA to maybe pull off the big upset with the big KO in this one. All right, let's get to the main event on this card. It is Grant Dawson on a pretty big run in the UFC right now. Has looked very good out there against the longtime veteran Bobby Green. Dawson is the biggest favorite on the card. It's sitting climbing close to -500 at this point. I think Dawson probably has this one in the bag with his wrestling, control time, all that stuff against Bobby Green. But yeah, we'll see. Madlib, your thoughts, Green and Dawson?
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I was torn on this fight all week. When I was breaking it down, because go back to the Morono fight when we talk about awkward styles and stuff like that. Now, Morono's a guy with an awkward style, and he's technical, but he's not athletic. You got a guy in Bobby Green who's extremely awkward. He uses that Philly shell pretty well. He's got technical ability, and he's athletic. So now you got and he's a very savvy vet. So you got a guy in Dawson now who I love everything I see from this kid. He's tough. He's got good grappling. But you also got to worry about that. When is that O going to go under the UFC umbrella? It's eventually going to go. You know what I mean? And you're fighting a guy now in Bobby Green who is pretty well-rounded everywhere. I mean, he's got very good wrestling that is underlooked because everyone really just looks at his striking so much. And it's is Dawson going to be able to do that for 5 rounds? We don't know. We've never seen him go 5 rounds. This is his first 5-round spot. There is question marks with Dawson, in this spot. There really, really is. But when push comes to shove and you look at, where he can take this fight, you got Green, who's not getting any younger. When you get older, your style has to kind of match your age. And Green's got a very young style to him. He's got the young man's fighting game. He uses speed, he uses snap, he uses angle manipulations. That's a young man's game. When is that going to fall off the cliff? And usually when it falls off the cliff, it falls off in one fight. All of a sudden we just sit down what the fuck was that Bobby Green? Almost like Tony Ferguson has that young man style. And just one day he just fell off. Eventually Bobby Green's going to fall off. But until he falls off, he's a tough out for anybody. I am leaning Dawson here. But I can see a world where Bobby Green fucking, finds a way to keep this on the feet, finds a way to kind of nullify the wrestling a little bit, finds a way to kind of tag him up. He doesn't have a lot of power, but the angles that he throws things on can be a little daunting. Dawson, if you look at his face, as young as he is, he's got a lot of scar tissue buildup. That kid has a lot of scar tissue buildup around his eyes. And when you have scar tissue buildup, you cut a lot easier. We don't see Bobby Green cut. When's the last time you've seen Bobby Green really cut? So if you're dealing with a round, like round 2, round 3, round 4, where it's a close round and you see Dawson lumped up and cut up, the judges might lean that way towards damage a little bit, even though Green might have a little bit more active round. It's actually a pretty tricky fight. I am leaning Dawson because I could see a world where Dawson just runs roughshod through him and maybe even subs him and or gets him out of there in the 3rd round. But I wouldn't be blown fucking away if we go to, 5 rounds in this fight and we're all sitting back and be like, here comes the split. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I think the dogs in all 3 fights have somewhat of a chance, considering the numbers on them, JSU. But your thoughts here, Dawson and Green?
Yeah, so I agree with Madlab. At the end of the day, wrestling for a few rounds in a row is gonna get tiring for someone, even someone like Dawson, who that's his game plan. But that's tiring, and so it wouldn't shock me if this was closer. like he won the first couple rounds, and then Bobby Green found a way to win like the later rounds, and it was a split or a closer, fight than what people think. At the end of the day, though, Dawson does have that ability to just overwhelm people, and I do think it's enough to get this done against someone in Green who I know he finished Tony Ferguson, but he's not really a finisher. Like he caught him in a sub, but that's not really his game. Doesn't have like a ton of power, so. Even though he's better on the feet, he's definitely better on the feet than Dawson. I would 100%, but I'm not like terrified of him on the feet, like from a finish perspective. So from a DraftKings perspective, I think he's this. I would put him in tournaments as the second best 6K guy if I had to rank him. I still would put Hassan just from the standpoint that Hassan has all this power and could finish anyone early, really. Has that type of power. I'd put him 1 and Bobby Green 2. I think Green's probably safer if you're just looking for scoring, 50 points or 60 points, something like that. Even in a loss, he could score, some points.
Do you stack him? Would you
I would not stack him.
I mean, I'm not a stack person.
I'm never a stack person, but I understand in cash stacking this fight because one guy's gonna take him down and lay him. He's gonna lay on him, right? He's gonna lay on him. He's gonna stay safe and kind of move around, and then if he gets up, you try to dump him again. So he's going to score, and then you get Bobby Green's points, whatever he ends up with in cash. I would assume you just take those two, right? Like I'm not.
Seems like the best of the 3 fights. This is definitely the one I would be most likely to stack in cash.
I don't think you'd stack any other fight in cash.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No,
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Anything more, JSU?
No, I mean, I think Dawson wins.
Well, Algio and Hernandez.
I could see him winning by sub. I like this take by Jason. I could see him winning by sub, honestly. But
Algio and Hernandez, I could make an argument for stacking in cash.
Maybe. I think if it gets into a war, though, which you would need it to get into an absolute
yeah, you're right.
Hernandez ends up folding, I think. So
unless you want the 5 rounds, right?
Yeah, you want the 5 rounds.
Yeah.
All right, Drew, what do you got for the numbers and your pick here? Dawson Green.
Yep, Dawson, I got at 50%. I think he's going to be about 50% owned in every single contest, higher, obviously, in single entry. And Bobby Green, I got at 20%. So, I just lean Dawson. I think fine to have Bobby Green in your pool. He grades out pretty poorly for, compared to the other 6K dogs. But, again, building 100, 150 lineups, he probably should be included. And I wouldn't obviously pair him with Dawson personally. But, yeah, Dawson's my pick. I think he's got such a huge ceiling in this spot. Whether it goes 5 rounds with a bunch of control time, like JSU said, I do think he can win via submission, and that obviously adds on another layer of points. So, yeah, Dawson's my guy up here, 9,400, 50% owned. I just think his ceiling just makes this whole slate.
Yeah, makes total sense. Any final thoughts from the panel before we get on out of here?
Nothing.
All right, we covered it. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Thanks for watching, as always.
Wait, hold on.
I gave you your chance, Mad Lab.
Fight today?
What's that?
Were we on the different side of a fight today, me and JSU, or no?
No, go fight with your neighbor.
Yeah, Muniz versus Akiri Lang. Were we on the same side? I can't remember.
I had Muniz. You had
I had the other side. Yeah.
All right, we'll just have a bullshit friendly bet.
Nothing we were strong on though, so maybe next round.
All
right. We'll get out of here. For Mad Lab, for JSU, for Red Kachik, for Alvaro Construction. I'm DC.
He disappeared when I said he was from California. Did you see that? He never came back into the chat after that.
He's moving.
We're out of here.